appreciate being locked out of our own waters, and we love to be the stewards of our oceans, and especially when a lot of that pressure is coming from foreign funded environmental groups, the likes of Pew, etc. I think it's good to see so many people here making a stand, and that's the message we're sending across today. Don't lock us out, and we've got a great man to make that message today across to all the people out there, and that's Rex Hunt. A big hand for Rex. He has flown across the country. He has flown across the country just for this, and he's basically on the first flight back out again afterwards, which is a massive commitment, but it shows what it means to him, and I'll hand the floor to Rex.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you very much to you people who have taken the time to come here today. And without being too controversial, which if you have a look at on the Wikipedia, the term controversial, you see my photo. But why don't you say to your mates, where were you? And I understand that people have to work, and I understand it's a working day, but the fact of the matter is that you people have made the effort to come here. And the bloke from Channel 9 just said to me on a live cross, what are you doing here? Well, I'm doing here what I felt like I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. When you're on the television, you either last for a short time or a long time, and I lasted for a long time because the fishing people, for some reason, like my style, and they like the fact that we targeted kids who are in this audience here today as parents themselves. That's the good news. The bad news is this is just the start, and we know that. We thought that this day would never come, but it has arrived, where people from high places are making rules for you people when they don't know what's going on. It's called dictatorship, and it's un-Australian, and I'll tell you why. Because fishing has been part of our culture since we landed here. How many people have been crabbing? How many people have been where Cleggy took me, netting the prawns in the Swan River? How many people have been down to Esperance, catching those marvellous silver trevally and King George whiting? With your father, with your grandfather. This is what I'm talking about. This is a real threat to our lifestyle. It's un-Australian. And the only way that we are going to actually fight this is by getting together and united as one. I'll tell you about a meeting that I was at in March. And Scotty and Andrew from West Australian Angler and Rec Fish were in Canberra. And we had 17 different factions in one room the night before the parliamentary breakfast. And to an organisation, those 17 factions came together to form the Keep Australia Fishing movement. The people who got this thing going was the Australian Fishing Tackle Association, and also of their form the Australian Fishing Foundation. And they asked me, would you like to be involved? I said, if I can actually draw a bit of attention, if I can actually help, I certainly will, particularly for kids. So I said to you, son, I like kids. I used to go to school with them. And the thing about it is this, is that what we have to do here today, we have to make a pact. We have to make an agreement between each other. That those blokes that get on the forums and start bagging each other under their passwords and their usernames and that sort of thing, all that's gone because Big Brother is watching. There are people in this community who believe that fishing is cruel. Well, I can tell you now, when I go down the beach with my granddaughter and she says, oh, look, Pop, there's a crab. Well, can we go fishing, Pop? That's what it's all about. Are you in 50 or 60 years' time when your grandparents going to be looking at your grandchildren and say, we had a chance to do something in 2012 and we did Jack Shizen? The fact of the matter is that this is a real threat. There are overseas organisations like Pew who say it's a good idea to lock up our oceans. What possible reason could there be to lock up the Rottnest Trench? I haven't fished there, but 2 miles inside that, Neil Patrick, who's here today from Helco, and if there's ever anything when the shit hits the fan, Neil Patrick and his son are here, because they are fishermen first and business people later. I fished at the fish attracting device, I think you people know a bit better than me, it's called a FAD, and had some of the best dolphin fishing that I've had in my life anywhere in the world. But 2 miles west of there, they want to lock up the ocean because the blue whale, and all the best to the blue whale family, they might come in there and have a bit of a look around and then POQ at the other side. The seriousness about this today is this. United we stand and divided we fall. It's a corny old thing, this, But I can tell you now, this to me brings back memories in 1996 when 10,000 people marched on Parliament House in Victoria and said no more scallop dredging in Port Phillip Bay. In Port Phillip Bay now, there is a multi-million-dollar tourism called snapper fishing in Port Phillip Bay. So many people from around Australia come to the West Coast. When I did a show at Dirk Hartog Island, the bloke was booked out. Denham was booked out. People went fishing where the two climates came together, the two temperates I should say, the warm water and the cold water. And in the same water you could catch pink snapper and yellowfin tuna and dolphin fish. And you could see the people thought they were big whiting in the shallows, but they were bonefish. What I'm showing to you, and I'm not trying to be smart by saying I know everything about fishing. I've only had 55 years on the water and I'm still wringing wet. But what I'm finding now is people in Canberra who have never been fishing are telling me what's wrong with the fishery, are telling we that we are environmental vandals. It's got to stop, and it's got to stop now. Log on to Keep Australia Fishing. It won't cost you a Zach. Just register so that when Keep Australia Fishing goes to people like Tony Burke and the Fisheries Minister, when we go there we say we represent 5 million anglers in Australia. The only thing that can defeat us is if we take this on the chin and say, oh, all right. As Tony Burke said on Late Line the other night, who's going to go out in the tinny 400 kilometres out in towards the Coral Sea? And that's a fair comment. None of us for sure. But as soon as you give in, they'll start creeping. The old canyon creeper. And then they'll want a bit of the Coburg Sound. And then they'll want more of Geograph Bay, I beg your pardon. They'll want some of Esperance. And heaven forbid, for Christ's sake, don't call it Albany. They'll want some of Albany. This is just the start. This is one of the most pristine coastlines in the world. We have fisheries managers now who care. The Western Australian fisheries managers are fishermen first, and then they are managers second. The same as in Victoria, where we're enjoying magnificent resurgence of snapper and whiting and inland species like the brown and the rainbow trout. Now, before I finish and we get on to our next speaker, let me say, this seems like a very, very long way to come for such a short speech. But I can just get the vibe here. I can get the vibe that Ron Barassi said to me when I first played for the Big V in 1971. He said, son, if it is to be, it is up to me. No long can we sit down and let the other bloke do it. No long can we sit down and think she'll be right, because she won't be right. The greenies are here and the greenies are coming. And when you want to explain to your grandchildren in 30 or 40 or 50 years' time why we didn't do something, good luck, because I know today. It's almost like Billy Graham asking you to come down with your Gideon's Bible in it. But it's not. I'm just about done. I reckon I got one foot in the grave, and it's time that I became a full-time husband and a full-time pop. But while I'm drawing breath, no bloke in Canberra who doesn't fish will tell me what's going to happen. We had a bloke called Flannery or whatever his name is. He said it was never going to rain again. In Victoria, we've had so much rain, they're thinking about letting some of the water out of the storages. For God's sake, this comes from Canberra, the people who would not know whether Southern Aurora was up them until the conductor called for the tickets. And the thing about it is this, that might be a bit light-hearted, but they're the people that you vote for, and they're running the country. And before you know it, this area will be closed, that area will be closed. Please, write to these people. Please, log on to Keep Australia Fishing. Don't lock us out. Ask questions. Why the bream are dying right behind me now? Why some people are saying it's just a cyclic thing. Well, cyclic things happen with algal blooms and various things that happen within the environment. But suddenly what happens when it rains, and you haven't had a lot of rain here, and the runoff contains all of these chemicals and it comes in. Wouldn't it be just fantastic if 5 million Australians before the next election could issue a writ on the reigning government for locking you out of fishing areas? And you know what it's called? It's called discrimination. It's like discriminating me because of too many U-turns under the sheets. It's like discriminating that bloke because he swallowed half an esky full of jewfish. The thing about it is this: we were born to fish. We are a group, and I can get the real feeling now that as a group we can take our place in this country as a serious consideration when they're making our decisions. Keep Australia Fishing. Every kid here today, and I don't know how many kids there are, and we're going to put actually an age limit up, Scott. All the kids must be under 50 years of age. There's going to be a rod and reel for kids who come in today with their folk. You know what? The thing, don't clap mate, they'll throw you fish. And the thing about it is this: if you put a fishing rod in the hand of a kid, that kid won't be up a back lane doing a drug deal. That kid won't be run over by a train painting graffiti on the side of the carriage. Why? Because I know if you introduce kids to fishing, they become good citizens. They don't take their knife into the central business district of an evening. They go fishing, and if they get onto the internet, they get onto the Keep Australia Fishing Foundation, or how do I use a Halco trembler out there at the Rottnest Trench. I'm just about done. When you're reading the paper that I'm gone, at least I had to go, and if you look under H, that'll be me, because in Melbourne every day people die in alphabetical order. But I can tell you, on my epitaph will be the how to go. And as Theodore Roosevelt said all those years ago, after Pearl Harbor was bombed and he wanted to go and bomb the living Scheisenhausen out of Japan, and they wanted him to stand down, he said, "Far better it is to dare mighty and impossible things, even checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor souls that neither enjoy nor suffer much. Theirs is the grey twilight known as mediocrity, and have a go and damn the consequences." That is a fantastic message from Theodore Roosevelt. We'll leave him out of this because he probably hasn't been out the Rottnest Trench. He hasn't been down to Trigg, sitting on a tripod with Cleggy. But let me leave you with this one message. If we bow down to this and say to Tony Burke, "Oh, it's all right, Minister, you can take that part of the Coral Sea, you can take that part of Geograph Bay, you can take the Rottnest Trench, as long as you don't come any closer," mark my words, it'll come back to haunt you, because they'll say there has been no protest from anglers against this particular policy. Anglers are conservationists, they're not preservationists. Anglers are the best at managing their fishery. I want to say how proud I am here today to be an Australian. I'm on the 6:05 plane home to give my wife her medication because I love her, and that's what it's all about. Last week we celebrated 42 years. We're happily married. I'm happy, she's married. And the fact of the matter is that till the day I die I want to go fishing. And every day I go fishing I want to see a kid wetting the line as well. Thank you very much.
Fantastic work by Rex. As I said, he is flying across the country today and is on a flight back in about an hour, which is just a sign of his commitment to the cause. Our next speaker, we've got a couple more to come a little bit later on as well, but our next speaker is the CEO of Recfish West, and Recfish West have been right involved in all this. If you're not